Her wedding day turned into a nightmare. This is Maya Green's journey to strength and dignity. The morning sunlight poured through the delicate lace curtains of the bridal suite, painting the room in soft golden hues. Maya Green stood before a full-length mirror, gently adjusting the flowing folds of her wedding dress. The ivory fabric glimmered in the light, hand-sewn beads catching every ray. It was everything she'd imagined, elegant, timeless, perfect. Yet despite the beauty surrounding her, Maya's chest felt tight. An invisible weight pressed down on her, the joy of the day muted by something she couldn't quite name. "Girl, you look like a queen," her best friend Nicole said, taking a step back to admire her. "If Mason doesn't drop to his knees at the altar, I'll drag him there myself." Maya let out a small laugh, but it sounded hollow even to her own ears. Normally, Nicole's playful teasing could break through anything, but today it barely scratched the surface. Her heart beat heavily, and the unease that had been simmering since last night only grew stronger. The rehearsal dinner had been tense. Mason, her fiancé, had seemed distracted, as if his mind was 1,000 miles away. His mother, Evelyn Wright, had barely concealed her distaste for Maya's family and the cultural touches she'd woven into the ceremony. Evelyn had always been civil on the surface, but made no secret of her desire for a different daughter-in-law, one more suited to the Wright family's polished image. "Maya," Nicole's voice broke through her thoughts, snapping her back to the present. "Hey, you okay? You've been staring at yourself for like 5 minutes. Cold feet?" "No," Maya replied quickly, shaking her head. "Not cold feet. She hesitated, searching for the words. "I want a day to be perfect." "It has to be perfect." Nicole gave her a knowing look, raising an eyebrow. "Is this about Mason's mom? Because I swear, if she tries anything today—" "Don't," Maya interrupted, holding up her hand. "It's not worth it. She's old-fashioned. Mason says she'll come around." Nicole snorted. "Old-fashioned? That's a nice way of saying rude." Maya smiled faintly but didn't respond. She turned back to the mirror, smoothing the fabric of her gown with shaky hands. Her thoughts wandered to last night when she'd seen Mason speaking in hushed tones with his publicist. Maya hadn't caught what they were discussing, but it left her with a sour taste. Was their wedding about love, or was it simply a calculated move for Mason's carefully crafted public image? A sharp knock at the door startled them. Nicole turned to answer it, and there stood Mason, looking polished and perfect in his tailored tuxedo. "You know it's bad luck to see the bride before the ceremony, right?" Nicole teased, folding her arms. Mason gave a stiff smile. "I'll risk it. Just need a minute with Maya." Nicole hesitated, her protective gaze darting between them. "Fine, but if you stress her out, I'll hunt you down." She shot Mason a warning look before stepping out, leaving them alone. Mason closed the door behind him and turned to face Maya. For a moment, he didn't say anything. His eyes roamed over her from head to toe, and his lips curved into a small smile. "You look stunning," he said softly. "Thank you." Maya's voice was calm, but her nerves were anything but. "What's wrong?" Mason sighed and ran a hand through his neatly styled hair, a telltale sign that something was off. "It's about the jumping the broom thing." Maya's chest tightened. "What about it?" "My mom," he began carefully. "She's concerned. She thinks it doesn't fit the vibe of the ceremony." Maya blinked. "Concerned?" she repeated. "Mason, it's a tradition. It's important to me." "I know," he said quickly, "but she thinks it might stand out too much. We can find other ways to honor your culture without—" "Without what?" Maya cut in, her voice sharp. "Without making her uncomfortable?" The silence hung heavy between them. Mason stepped closer, his tone placating. "Come on, don't let this ruin the day. It's just one thing." Maya turned away, staring at her reflection. The woman in the mirror looked strong, beautiful, and ready. But inside, something felt like it was breaking. "I'll see you at the altar," Mason said softly, kissing her cheek before leaving the room. As soon as the door clicked shut, Maya let out a shaky breath, her hands trembling. Nicole reappeared instantly, her sharp eyes taking in Maya's expression. "What did he say?" "Nothing," Maya whispered, her voice tight. "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. The ceremony was picture-perfect on the surface. Sunlight filtered through the trees, the flowers were in full bloom, and a string quartet played softly as Maya walked down the aisle. She should have felt like the happiest woman in the world, but all she noticed were the subtle glances exchanged between Mason's relatives. The broom she'd wanted to jump was conspicuously absent, a last-minute adjustment she hadn't agreed to. Mason smiled at her as she reached the altar, but his grip on her hands felt mechanical, almost practiced. The vows were recited flawlessly, as though rehearsed for the cameras and the crowd rather than spoken from the heart. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, Maya's pulse quickened. For a split second, she expected Evelyn to stand up. But no one spoke, and the ceremony moved forward. Still, as Mason kissed her and they turned to face the applauding guests, Maya caught Evelyn's gaze, cold, unreadable, and completely devoid of warmth. This was only the beginning. The reception hall sparkled with elegance. Chandeliers glowed above tables set with pristine white linens, silverware polished to a shine. Guests laughed, mingled, and toasted to the newlyweds, but Maya's mind was miles away. Mason had been glued to his phone since the ceremony ended. Every time she looked his way, he was either texting or speaking in hushed tones to his publicist, who had mysteriously been invited to the wedding. Her mother approached her, concern etched into her face. "Baby, you okay? You look tense." Maya forced a smile. "I'm fine, Mama. Just a lot to juggle." Her mother squeezed her hand, her gaze soft. "You look beautiful. Don't let anyone take this day from you." But Maya couldn't ignore the growing cracks. When the DJ announced their first dance, she found Mason at the bar, distracted. "It's time," she said, her voice low. "Right. Sorry," Mason muttered, pocketing his phone. They swayed on the dance floor as the music played, but the intimacy was missing. Mason's movements were stiff, his eyes flickering to the crowd as if performing for them rather than sharing the moment with her. And then came Evelyn's speech. "I just want to say how proud I am of my son," Evelyn began, her voice sweet but cutting. "Mason has always been generous, always looking out for those less fortunate. And now he's extending that generosity to his choice of bride." The room went silent. Maya froze, her heart pounding. She glanced at Mason, waiting for him to stand up for her, to say something, anything. But he simply stared down at his plate, avoiding her gaze. The humiliation was unbearable. That night, the final blow came during the cake cutting. Evelyn made yet another pointed remark about Maya's family, contributing little to the wedding. This time, Maya's composure shattered. She turned to Mason, her voice trembling. "Are you seriously just going to let her say that?" He sighed, exasperated. "Not now, Maya. Don't make a scene." And then it happened. In his frustration, Mason raised his hand and slapped her. The room went silent. The music stopped. All eyes turned to them. Maya touched her cheek, the sting of the slap mingling with the humiliation burning through her. Slowly, she turned to face the crowd, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her tone cold and clear, "this wedding is over." Without another word, she walked out of the hall, leaving Mason and his family behind. Outside, the night air hit her like a slap of its own, cold and sharp. Nicole found her moments later and wrapped an arm around her. "You did the right thing," Nicole whispered. "You're stronger than all of them." The next morning, Maya woke on Nicole's couch, still in shock. The days that followed were a whirlwind, packing her things, filing restraining orders, and ignoring the flurry of messages from Mason and Evelyn. But with the unwavering support of her family and friends, Maya began to rebuild. She poured her emotions into a journal, recording the truth of what had happened. "Love isn't about sacrifice," she wrote. "It's about respect, and I'll never settle for anything less again." In time, Maya found peace. Her story became one of strength and resilience, proof that even in the face of betrayal, it was possible to rise and reclaim your dignity. Thank you for watching. If Maya's story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful narratives. Let's keep spreading these messages of hope, strength, and courage. See you in the next story.